Well, a good Friday morning to you all again, friends. Richard here for another Friday morning fire pit conversation as I sit out here uh, in this early morning. Am I really in Georgia? Can't believe. I mean, it's mid-April and it's been in the mid-30s past couple mornings. Actually, rather chilly. Got the wool socks on and there, trying to keep myself warm a little bit. Wasn't expecting it to cool off this much in the early morning, but it's still kind of nice. Very beautiful out. The birds are still going, and it's just so it makes for a good Friday morning. You probably see behind me the sun's starting to kind of peek through the trees to my left, and so looks like it's going to be another good day. So I pray everyone's doing well this week. I pray that we just came through the Easter Passion Week and through Easter and remembering the resurrection of Jesus and just how pivotal that is for all of us. And we come through that season, and oftentimes we get charged up and fired up, and what does that mean beyond that when we leave that time of year and begin to move towards later spring into summer? And how are we going to continue to remember each day the resurrection and the importance of the resurrection of Jesus and what that means for each of our lives? So anyway, just something I'm just thinking about right now on the fly as I'm sitting in here this morning. But so first, it's still a wild season that we're in, of course. A lot of people still under stay-at-home orders, as we are here in Georgia. I'm not sure how long it's going to be lasting, but so I've had several Zoom calls over the last weeks, which has been really good. I'm sure many of you have done the same thing. And one I had this week with some allies was really good for my heart, and really got me really thinking about a lot of things, and even stuff that I've done myself. But a question I want to throw out to you, friends, is just really thinking about first, during this time, while you're home, what are you doing to really care for your heart and for the hearts of others? How are you making the most of that time? And that question probably comes up quite a bit to a lot of us, and I know I've thought about it. I've probably mentioned something on those lines along the way in some of these conversations, but really just want you to really pause and think about how are you continuing to care for your heart in this time, because we are now, literally we're now just over a month into this thing here in the States. We've had and it's been such an unprecedented time, and as that wears on, as time goes on, and it starts to weigh on our hearts and weigh on our work life, our families, we've seen a lot of things that have just gone sideways in a lot of ways because of all this. How are you continuing to care for your heart in the midst of all this? How are you continuing to care for the hearts of your families, your spouses, your children? And I want to challenge men. I want to challenge you especially to really think about what you're doing in your own life to really care for your wives and care for your sons and daughters. Because right now, I think some of the things that I've heard, and I wish I had some hard stats in front of me to really reveal, but we hear stories of domestic abuse on the rise, and things like that, because of all these people, everybody being home now and with their spouses and with their families, and it's causing a lot of strain on people's lives. So what are we doing with that? And how are we addressing the time that we have, and really being able to make the most of the time with our families, and ensuring that we're not letting the burdens and the stresses of it all get to us to the point where it boils over, because it's a stressful time. It's a very stressful time for all of us. So how are we really continuing to really press forward and ensuring that doesn't overwhelm us? Because the longer it goes, the harder the stress gets. I'm just being real about that. I'm being real about how that affects each one of us. So it's been a wild time, and I really do pray. And like I said, I challenge men specifically because it has to begin with the way we choose to operate and the way we choose to really uh, pursue our families and our loved ones through such a crazy time. Um, they look we're looked to lead. We are looked to lead the way and really model this life, the life with God, and also just the life of being the leaders of our homes and the way we go about operating in our day to day with our families. And I heard so many times over the years of spouses saying how they couldn't be with their spouse 24/7, all around the clock, all the time, you know. And I guess I'm blessed because my wife and I, we just love the time we have together. In the years I worked from home, it's just something that we loved, being around one another and being able to make the most of that time. And um, so for me personally, I never understood that feeling, but now we're in a season where we're kind of forced into that, right? Where we're forced around the clock to just be in that situation, and it's causing, I think it's caused some extra pressures that we weren't expecting. Um, so really, I want to really reiterate that challenge to not let uh, this stressful time really overwhelm you to the point where it can boil over on you. And being transparent, being honest, yes, there are days where the stress can build up a little bit, you know. And I'm not always one to say the right thing. Absolutely not. But so the challenge remains. The question remains: how are you going to care for your heart and the hearts of your loved ones in this time? Um, and so it's an important question to ask, and it's an important question to really consider. Um, and even how are you continuing to really advance the kingdom in this time, right? What are we doing to really go after um, in this time of just separation, when we're not being able to be around those that are closest to us, the people that we maybe do small group life with, um, or anything like that, or our close friends that we're not getting to see on a regular basis now? How are we making use of that time? Thankful for technology like Zoom. It's been a wonderful thing, and I think I've said before, with the relationships that have been able to be fostered because of that has been huge, and I've heard many stories of that. And for me personally, it's been great because I've been able to actually connect with people that I probably wouldn't have otherwise because of this. People across the country that I've been able to really just start building connections with, and it's been such a wonderful thing and a wonderful tool to have. Do I want that to be norm? Of course not. I love being face to face, and it's funny because people laugh at me now when I say this, but I'm a naturally introverted person. Or I have been most of my life. And I think that's the way I operated in my false self, was just being really closed in and really reserved. But I can't stand being away from people. I love being around people now, and it drives me nuts not being able to hug on folks and love on folks and stuff like that, and being around my brothers and all that. So what are you doing? And this is why part of the reasons why I'm doing these conversations, and I'm going to continue this as long as, even beyond all this quarantine stuff. I just want to be able to be here, offer encouragement, offer love, and being able to reach out and continue to advance the kingdom in some way um, uh, where hopefully a few hearts can still be reached no matter where you're at. And that's the whole heart behind all of this. So there's something this morning that's kind of been on my heart, and I don't know if any of you have seen the show, the series, The Chosen. It's been out for, I guess, almost a year now. My family and I are kind of late to the game in that. So we actually just sat down last night and watched the first 3 episodes of that. And so far, just a very well done series, and I'm looking forward to really to seeing the rest of season 1 and seeing how that unfolds. But just, I love the way the makers of that series really captured so far what I've seen the different characters in the gospel narrative, from Nicodemus to the disciples especially, and seeing some of the personality come out. And I love seeing just almost the playful personality of Jesus in what I've seen so far come out. And it's such a cool thing, because he's not this this stiff white robed man with the lamb on his shoulders that's always just so so serious and preaching and all that. There's this playful, this relational, deep side to him that's just fun to watch. Even in one of the episodes, if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil too much, but when he's sitting down for a Sabbath dinner at Mary's home, and one of the people there asks him where he comes from. This is before Jesus is really began his ministry. This is before the wedding in Cana and all of that. And he's one of them asks where he comes from, and he says, "I'm from Nazareth." And one of the men says, "Something good does come from Nazareth." And Jesus just looks at him. People are kind of freaked out, like, "Oh man, what'd you just say?" But Jesus just looks at him and just winks. And I just love that. And so I thought that was just a cool little thing of seeing that little bit of personality come out. And if you want to see that in a reading, folks, I recommend Beautiful Outlaw by John Eldridge. A really just very good read that captures the personalities of Jesus and how he really is, the playfulness, the cunning, and all those sides of him. And it really helps you, and it helped me in my early in my faith journey of really learning to unpack who Jesus was as I read through the Gospels, and along with that, and it helped me just to love Jesus that much more. So I encourage you to read that book. But anyway, I want to go back, and something that as I'm sitting out this morning, just asking God, what do you want to show me this morning? And he takes me into Matthew 11. Matthew 11, 28 through 30. And I'm going to read this. This is out of the Message, where he says, "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't let anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." And this just kind of came to me as I was watching that show last night, and they're having their weekly Shabbat Sabbath dinner, and how important that was from a religious standpoint for the Jewish faith of keeping that tradition. But I look now, and I look at and how Jesus talks about that God made the Sabbath. It wasn't created for him, right? God made the Sabbath for us. He made us. He created the Sabbath for us to have rest, to be able to find space in him. And I love those words, learn the unforced rhythms of grace, right? So often, even in a time like now where we are so kind of, we're stressed out, we're worried, we're unsure of what's going to happen next, where this life's going to lead, and all that. But there's the reality that we have this, we have our Savior, we have Jesus that we can really rest into. Other translations of the same passage where he talks about, my burden is easy, my yoke is easy, my burden is light, right? And I remember there was a man, when I was at the Become Good Soil Intensive in Colorado back in 2016, one of the facilitators there, he shared something kind of unpacking that narrative a little bit more, where he talks about, when you think about a yoke, and think about the yoke of an ox, and how when it's meant to help carry the weight, right? You share the burden, and when when you're further away from Jesus, and the way he kind of broke it down, the further you get from Jesus, the heavier the burdens get, the heavier the weight gets. But when you come in closer to him, right, the lighter it gets. His yoke is easy, his burden is light. There's nothing to carry because Jesus carries that load for us. If we will simply rest in him, he offers us that rest. In the unforced rhythms of grace, right? There's nothing in this faith, in this journey. There's just this. There's no need to continue to strive and worry and stress. We make everything so difficult for ourselves. We worry so much, and we are unsure of everything. But if we learn to really walk in the grace of Jesus and really rest in him, there's this again this unforced rhythm. There's no need any longer to stress and worry, because he takes all that burden, all that worry off of us. So it's something so vital to think about and process as you're going through this time. And this time right now is a perfect opportunity to really think about that. How are we resting? It goes back to the question of how are you caring for your heart, right? How are you caring for your heart and the heart of others? And are you taking advantage of this Shabbat time, of this rest Sabbath time that we have? It's kind of a forced Sabbath, right? Of having to really stop a lot more than we expected to in many respects. And I know it's not the case for everybody, because there's a lot of folks that are hard charged. And I was in a conversation the other day with one of the men who is he's been like gangbusters in his work. But at the same time, for a lot of us, there is this kind of forced stop to a lot of what we're doing. So how are we taking advantage of that? What are we doing with that to care for our hearts? And if we are still going, if our work is still hard charging, how are we still caring for our hearts? Because we've got to readdress this question even when we're back to our regular rhythms, right? When we're back to the daily grind of work, if we're back to our commutes, if we're in our offices or wherever it may be, right? What are we going to be doing with that time? How are we going to take advantage and really rest into Jesus throughout our days and our times, even in the midst of a busy day? How are you going to rest, right? You know, I take advantage. One of the things I love now that Ransom Heart Ministries put out is the Pause app. And I would highly recommend you take advantage of that, friends, and really schedule yourself time each day to just stop and rest in Jesus. And really learn to continue to cultivate deeper union with God through that time, and inviting that restoration of that union with him. So it's just an important, vital piece, right? Of how, even if you're on the road, how are you going to make time to stop? One of the things I do, I keep a little small camping chair in my truck. That's and if I happen to be on the road for a long time, I may just stop, find a place on the side of the road, and stop and just sit for a few minutes, even if just for a minute, and just pause and rest in Jesus. So again, the Sabbath was made for us. The Sabbath was made for us to be able to care for our hearts in the midst of all this. And now, so the question I'll continue to remain when we are back to our regular rhythms, when life begins to restore, and there's talk of reopening America right now, that the president was talking about yesterday. How are we going to continue to take advantage of this easy yoke, this easy burden in Jesus, learning the unforced rhythms of grace and keeping company with him, and learning to live freely and lightly in him, because that's what he's trying to show us. The life with God, the full life that we're meant to have, that he came to restore each one of us, is meant to be free and light, without worry, without fear. So I want to urge you, friends, just think about that this week, and I really pray that you are able to take advantage of the time that you do have. So as the sun comes up, We'll continue through this Friday morning, and I want to thank you for joining me today, just taking a few minutes just to listen to me and listen to me share some of the things that are on my heart this week. So we'll see you back here again next week, and I pray that you will have just a wonderful weekend, and look forward to seeing you again next Friday. Take care, friends, and God bless.